It is Monday in June. That can only mean one thing. It's time for another Mock Draft Monday. We're going to change things up and change our perspective on this week's mock draft. Talk a little bit more about talent over fit. Let's get to it. It's time for Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is June 5th, 2023. My name is Philip Rossman. I'm the expert and site editor over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. Of course, follow me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, it is a mock draft Monday. So we're going to break down another mock draft, talk a little bit about how things have changed, perhaps because of some news and perhaps because of a forced change of perspective. We're going to talk more about talent over fit, because I think I overcorrected in one direction. We'll talk about some of the Magic's options in this draft, how things could shake out, and what they should be thinking about at each of their two picks in the lottery. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment, plus recap Game 2 of the NBA Finals. But first, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day, no matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether it's right when we upload. We truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. Remember, there's a great Locked On podcast covering every single team in the NBA. Just search for Locked On and the team you're looking for. The Locked On Podcast Network, it's your team every day. Today's podcast is brought to you by PrizePicks. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. That's PrizePicks.com, promo code Locked On. We're going to go through this exercise. We only got, I think, three more of these left. We're going to make Monday Mock Draft Monday. And essentially what I want to do with this is, go over perhaps some of the news going on around the NBA draft and what's going on with the Magic specifically. But I want to do this as an exercise to kind of attack the draft from different angles. Last week we had the lottery order for the first time. And really dove into and got our grips into the draft based off of kind of what teams need. And I will admit, in my first mock draft, my mock draft 2.0, I do one before the lottery order set, then I renew it after the lottery order set. And my mock draft 2.0, I will admit I put too much focus on team needs and put too much focus on saying, well, the Hornets don't need another guard. They got LaMelo Ball and Terry Rozier. Why would they need Scoot Henderson? No. Instead, and I'm planning to do another big board episode and do another big board later this week. Instead, what I want to do with this mock draft, I don't want to change the structure. I don't reset the whole thing. I use my old mock draft as kind of a jumping off point. To save myself some work so I could spin it out real quickly. But I want to kind of reset things and think about, okay, I thought about fit a little bit too much. Let's just focus on talent. And doing that, and again, I've had conversations with lots of you guys. I've thought through a lot of these things. This is going to be a real important point for the Orlando Magic. We talked a lot about it last week, and it deserves some redredging here. The Magic are a team that is trying to make the playoffs next year. Then the players have put that out as a goal. Everyone understands that the next level for this team to reach is making the postseason. Whether that's play-in, whether that's the playoffs, it's making the postseason. And who the Magic draft is a part of that equation. No matter who the Magic are picking, I think the Magic should expect that player to contribute to the team in a meaningful way next season. Now, again, to what extent, who knows? But I would expect that the Magic will get a player that will contribute next season. They want a player that will do that. At the same time, there is certainly the feeling that the Magic have one last good bite at the apple. Like literally, this is, if the Magic are going to be a playoff team from now till the end of time, that's not true. But if the Magic are going to be a playoff team for the foreseeable future, they aren't going to be picking sixth anytime soon. And so this is an opportunity to add a very, very talented player to your roster, perhaps for the last time, or to get that kind of guaranteed talent. Now, Jeff Weltman says this a lot. I agree with him on this. You can only take what the draft gives you. And I will continue to repeat this. I have told some of my friends this as they've discussed draft options and what the Magic could do. I say, look, it doesn't matter what everyone else's board looks like. It only matters what Jeff Weltman's board looks like, what the Magic's board looks like. If they think there's a player that a lot of mock drafts have going in the 20s and they have at 11 and they want to take him at 11, they take him. Who cares what the outside world thinks? All that matters is your evaluation. And all that just plays a huge role in how we evaluate, how we think about the draft. That's why a big board is really important, and we're going to get to a big board later in the week. Let's dive into Mock Draft Monday then. If we're going to focus more on talent rather than fit, the mock draft completely changes. Last week, my top three was Victor. Victor's one. We don't need to talk about that. But I had Charlotte taking Brandon Miller. Now, since then, there's been reports that have come out that say Brandon Miller is not interviewing well, that teams are not satisfied with the answers that he's giving. There's been some chat that Ahmed Thompson might sneak into the top three, that Brandon Miller might even be there at 6 for Orlando. We had that talk with Mike Richmond a few weeks ago about possibly trading up to 3 to get Brandon Miller. I'm willing to amend my mock draft. I wrote that I thought that Brandon Miller was a better fit for Charlotte at 2, but I wrote even then that this is probably going to be Scoot Henderson. And on a pure talent perspective, Scoot Henderson should be the number 2 pick. This is a multifaceted, versatile league. They can figure out a way to make 2 very good attacking guards who have shaky jumpers between LaMelo Ball and Scoot Henderson. They can figure out a way to make that work. And they can find the players that they need to get back to the play-in tournament. If that's the case, then Portland's really happy because I think Brandon Miller allows them to go down the 2 tracks that they want to go down. I think that he could contribute really, really well to a Damian Lillard center team. They don't have the problem of now we have 3 point guards that we need to start in Anthony Simons, Damian Lillard, and Scoot Henderson, which may still end up happening. But Brandon Miller is the perfect fit for Portland at 3. 4 and 5 are where this draft's going to get made. Now, Houston's going to probably draft Ahmed Thompson. I really like Ahmed Thompson. Houston, with having Kevin Porter Jr. as long as they have shown they like non-traditional point guards. They can run a lineup of Ahmed Thompson alongside Jalen Green and Jabari Smith if they decide to stay young. Obviously, if they go older, maybe that's a place where Jarris Walker sneaks in if James Harden is really coming. But Ahmed Thompson, I think, is pretty solidly number 4. We talked about him on Friday's episode. So this draft for the Orlando Magic, then, I think really turns at number 5. In my original mock draft that we talked about last week, I had the Magic taking Taylor Hendricks. And I think I even said then, Taylor Hendricks fits a need, gives them some forward depth, some rim protection, some potential shooting. He's just a really, really, really solid player. But he is probably not a star player. And I'll take heat in the Locked On mock draft. It's coming. I don't want to spoil it. If we do that mock draft today, the way I act in that draft is very, very different. I want you to remember that when it comes out, we will talk about it. We'll talk about some of my thinking. We'll talk about some of the things that I explored that maybe I wish I had a little bit more time to explore. We did our Locked On mock draft very, very early. So I'm going to pump the brakes. I think people will still generally be happy with what I got in it. But we'll pump the brakes on that for now. This draft then for the Orlando Magic, it sets up really well if they are trying to get one last bite of the apple, because they'll have the option between 2 guys, 2 flawed players. Don't get me wrong. 2 guys that do have a lot of question marks, but also a lot of talent, between Cam Whitmore and Asar Thompson. Now, personally, I have Asar Thompson rated ahead of Cam Whitmore on my board. In my mock draft, I have Detroit taking him, although I think they would ultimately take Cam Whitmore. I think Asar is better, and so I'm going to stick with Asar just to keep with the thought experiment and to keep kind of with the experiment and thinking about, okay, is Cam Whitmore really the guy? If you go back and listen to our conversation with Richard Stayman, both he and I have some real concerns about Cam Whitmore. He is not a good free throw shooter for a guy who is supposed to be a great scorer. 70% free throw shooter is really concerning. I don't care if he had a wrist injury. Free throws are free throws. They don't change between levels. He is a good three-point shooter by the numbers, but the free throw shooting is concerning. He obviously dealt with, not obviously, but he dealt with a little bit of a wrist injury, which certainly could have played a role in his poor shooting throughout the season. But he also has an assist rate of like 6%. He is one of the worst playmakers and passers among high usage players in the entire NCAA, in the entire Division I NCAA. To me, that's still concerning. If I were the Magic, what I want out of the number 6 pick, and this is just kind of the general goal now, if my strategy is I'm taking one safe pick and I'm taking one swing, and remember back 2 years ago, we all thought that the swing was Franz Wagner and the safe pick was Jalen Suggs. Turns out it was still kind of that way, but Franz Wagner was a very, very safe pick. We all thought Jalen Suggs was just a steal and a grab, but that turned out to be the right strategy. Take your shot at a star with the first pick, get someone that you're really comfortable with and safe with the second pick. That's kind of what I'm thinking now with the 6th pick. So a week ago, I was fine playing safe with both. Let's get some quality players. Let's help this team become a playoff team. Ensure that both guys are going to contribute. I sit here today having done some tape study on Asar Thompson, done a little more tape study on Cam Whitmore. I sit here today saying the Magic probably should take one of those two guys with 6. I would hope it's Asar. Honestly, if it's Cam Whitmore, that might be when I start to explore the trade down option. I think that the idea should be get a player with star potential, but has a floor high enough that he can give you something else. If Asar Thompson doesn't become a star player, and he does have star potential, but if he doesn't become a star player, he is already an elite slasher. He has shown great defensive potential. And maybe the shot comes around, maybe it doesn't. That might ultimately determine whether he's Justice Winslow or something more. That might determine if he's Justice Winslow or a smaller Pascal Siakam or whatever the case may be. I'll say it right here. I think Asar Thompson should be the pick at number 6. Just off of what I've seen, and that could change next week. But for now, I think this is the strategy for the Magic. So my mock draft, I have Asar going 5 because I have him rated above Cam Whitmore. If the Magic take Cam Whitmore, they are taking a star swing. I just don't think they're covered. I think the bust potential with Cam Whitmore, even with his athleticism, even with his size, even with his defensive potential, I think Asar Thompson is just the better player. I do worry that Whitmore isn't going to be able to do much more than if he's not an elite scorer, if he's not your primary scorer. I just worry that he's not going to be able to do much more on the floor. And I do think the Magic need to cover themselves for that. That's my thought at number 6. We'll talk about some of the other options that I think are interesting and maybe rising the list. And honestly, maybe I have ahead of Whitmore. I'm just not high on Whitmore. Richard Stayman continued to add some stuff to make me wonder about Whitmore a little bit more too. But we'll talk a little bit about the next options and what the Magic do at 11 coming up here in just a moment. But first, it's time for a quick word from our friends over at PrizePicks. The NBA Finals are still going on, and every day of the NBA Finals, one PrizePicks user is going to win a chance at becoming a millionaire. One entry placed after 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time will be randomly selected each day, and whoever placed that entry will be given a 6-pick flex with the following payouts. 6 correct picks get you $1 million, 5 correct picks, $80,000, 4 correct picks, $16,000. Full details can be found at prizepicks.com/million. You must opt in at this link to be eligible for the $1 million entry. Once you opt in, all you have to do is play the game like normal, and you could be the lucky winner. Playing PrizePicks is easy. It is truly daily fantasy done right. All you have to do is pick your players. Say you want to pick Nikola Jokic after his 41-point game last night. Say you want to pick him and he'll score more than 25 points. All you have to do is pick him and say he'll score more than 25 points. It's really that easy. Just do that 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times to make your entry, and you could win up to 25 times your money on that entry. There's no competing against other people, no dealing with sharks, no dealing with complicated salary caps. It's just you versus projections available. And PrizePicks offers projections on any sport that you watch, including the NBA, including MLB, including NHL, including PGA, including WNBA, including NASCAR, including esports, and so much more. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's really that easy. They offer safe and fast withdrawals and currently operates for more than 30 states, including here in Florida, as well as in Canada. Download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports today. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match of up to $100 with promo code LOCKED ON. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks is going to give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks is going to give you $50. Don't forget to enter that promo code LOCKED ON and sign up for an instant deposit match of up to $100. So I don't want to go like too much because, I say this all the time about fake trades. And look, mock drafts are great for clicks. They're great for just thinking about things. And again, that's what I want this to do. That's what I want this exercise to do. I don't care about my own picks, to be honest. I'm sure you guys are interested in who I think, but to me, it's not the who, it's the reasoning. Again, that's so much about what I'm about when it comes to these kind of traffic baity articles. It's not about who you're targeting. It's not about what that fake trade is. It's not about what that mock draft says. It's about the why. Always ask the why. I'm a big, big believer in that. So why do I think, why have I switched from Taylor Hendricks to Ahmed Thompson? It's because I think the Magic should take one more bite at the apple. I think that they need to cover themselves. They need to have a player that can play a role if he doesn't turn into a star, but they need to leave themselves open to the possibility that they can get one more star player to put with Franz Wagner, to put with Paolo Banchero, and really elevate the talent level on this team. I've said this a million times. I've told everyone that will listen to me on this. We're going to talk a little bit more about it on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Magic as well. That's my deep tease for now. Depth to me is the big thing for this offseason. Get deeper. Have a roster that you can feel very comfortable with, that you're developing, that you're very comfortable with going 8, 9, 10 guys deep, that a playoff level roster. You look at like the two teams in the finals, there are still holes in their roster, but Denver's going 8 guys that they really, really trust. Miami goes super deep with guys that they can really trust. And then Miami's still figuring things out. Denver's still figuring this series out as well. That's like, I'll always ask the why. So, there are players later on in this draft that I do think are worth considering and worth looking at. And again, we're going to use the mold, probably the best way to say it, the mold of a mock draft to kind of explore these players. So let me catch up here, since I remember the first 6 picks out of pure memory. So with the seventh pick in the draft, honestly, this is the guy I might take over Whitmore. And Anthony Black with with Arkansas. Anthony Black, I have him 7th on my board, 7th on my mock draft going to Indiana. Really great defender. His shooting is not good, and so do the Magic need another guard or another point guard who can shoot? Again, I'm not sure. And again, I do think the Magic are a team that is ripe to move down in the draft. I pitched this deal to someone. I'll talk about it probably. I'll talk about it later on in the draft process as well. I pitched a deal. Maybe the Magic trade down to like 8 or 9, trade with Washington, get Daniel Gafford, trade 6 for 8 and Daniel Gafford. Maybe give up Chuma Okeke in the process, or give up a Bol in the process. To me, that is that fills a need and still allows you to get a high quality player in the draft. Well, maybe not grabbing a guy that you really want. Like the Magic don't need the star. They can go out and fill some other needs. That's the potential there, because do the Magic need Anthony Black? No, I really like Anthony Black. I think he's going to be a really solid player, but his poor shooting is really, really concerning especially for a team like Orlando. I have Jarris Walker going 8 to Washington. I've said this a million times about Jarris Walker. I really like Jarris Walker. I think he's going to win. I think he's a winning basketball player. I think he's going to help a lot of teams win. I don't think he's going to help the Magic win because they need shooting. They don't need guys who, this is the same concern I have about Anthony Walker. Same concern I have to some extent about Ausar Thompson and Cam Whitmore, but at least Ausar Thompson, Cam Whitmore show the proclivity to shooting, have shown that they can get better at shooting, and there's something to work with there. Anthony Black certainly has that a little bit too. Jarris Walker, for as smart as he is, as strong of a player as he is, not an offensive threat at all. And I just don't think the Magic can afford to go after a guy like that. The other two guys that I really like, 9, I have Cason Wallace going to Utah. I'm pretty locked in at Cason Wallace, Utah. They need a point guard. Wallace is a high-level point guard. I don't know if he's going to be an all-star type guy. He kind of profiles a little bit like Tyrese Maxey, good defender, able to get to the basket, not nearly the finisher Maxey was, while Maxey struggled from the three-point line in college, 80% free throw shooter. Cason Wallace is not that, but still a solid overall player. And then Taylor Hendricks. I have Taylor Hendricks going 10 to Dallas. I don't think he's there at 11 if Orlando wants to try and sneak him in at 11. But Hendricks, like I said, really, really solid player. I think he just does a lot of things really well. And his versatility is going to be really, really key moving as he moves into the NBA. So who do I have with the Magic taking at 11? I'm going to make my hot take. We did a podcast on both of these guys last week. This is where you get your shooter. If the Magic are determined, like I think they should be, I'm usually I don't like to make grandiose statements, but the Magic, I think, do need to come away from draft night with a shooter. And so 11 is the place to get your shooter. 11 is the spot to take care of this need. Grady Dick or Jordan Hawkins. I've talked to a lot of Magic fans. I've honestly said this. I don't really care who the Magic take at 6. As long as the Magic come away with one of Jordan Hawkins or Grady Dick, and I've even suggested maybe you try and get both. As long as the Magic come away with one of those players, I will probably consider this draft a success. I will probably consider draft night a success. I'll make my hot take of the day. Please, roast me if you'd like. I think I take Jordan Hawkins over Grady Dick. I'm not lying there. I really love this kid. I know I've said this a million times. I'm pretty zeroed in with Hawkins at 11. I really like him at that spot. I think that I know I'm not the only one. I know there's a few of the Lockdown hosts that also really like him in this range, even if the mock drafts don't quite have him there yet. He's got good size. I think he can be a good defender. That attention to detail is not quite there yet, but great shooter, a volume shooter. Shot 7 threes per game last year, shot a good percentage on those threes. Great free throw shooter, which certainly suggests that the three-point shot will translate. Shoots on the move really well, has great footwork coming around screens, straight line driver at the basket. Again, this is kind of the big thing, right? This is kind of the statement or the differentiator between players. Yes, Grady Dick is a great shooter, perhaps the best pure shooter in this draft. He's a smart defender, better defender than I think people give him credit for, but he's still a guy you attack in isolation. He's still a guy that you're going to hunt for in switches. And we're thinking about the playoffs. We are thinking about the playoffs and how this team's going to play when they get to postseason basketball. So Hawkins, to me, has the shooting that Dick has. But he also has the individual defensive ability. He also has the attacking ability. Now, he's not going to finish well in contact. He's not going to be able to change directions on the dribble. It's a straight line drive to the basket or it's nothing. And that's okay. But I really, really, really like what Jordan Hawkins brings to the table. To me, he is a much more complete player. You can use him in multiple roles in multiple ways. If they take away his shot, he's still going to find a way to be effective, or he still has a potential to be effective. And to me, that's something that I value. That's a versatility that I value in my evaluations and how I rank players. I'm not going to begrudge you. Again, so much of this, I'm not upset. Like, will I be upset if the Magic draft Cam Whitmore? No. Like, that's a good player. Like, I see why people like him. I see why people would believe in him. I'm not there yet. I don't know if I will get there. I think there's a lot of numbers that concern me with his style of play. Whereas like, and Asar Thompson, Asar Thompson shot 66% on free throws. They do the one, I just found out in OT, they do the one free throw for 2 point steals. So that certainly depresses his percentages a little bit there too. But he stepped up big time in the playoffs. His 3-point shot is coming around and developing. And I like the way that it's developing, even though I think there's still a long way to go with it. And I know that if he's not a scorer, he's going to defend at a high level, or he could defend at a high level. And to me, that's valuable. To me, that's something that I care about. Having a secondary role. If you don't become what you're ultimately going to be, if you don't become the tip of the most of your talent, because we're focusing on talent today, what's your floor, or how far do you drop? You go all the way down where you're just not a usable player. I think that could be. Again, Asar Thompson could certainly be that. I just see that more in Cam Whitmore than I do in Asar Thompson. If Cam Whitmore doesn't have the ball in his hands, is he a good enough spot up shooter to do that? The numbers in college say he is from the college 3-point line, but I do have my concerns about the NBA 3-point line and what translates. This is the same deal. Like, who knows? If you want to take Grady Dick at 11, I'm happy with that. Trust me, I like Grady Dick a lot too. I'm not sitting here saying that Grady Dick's the wrong pick either. I'm leaning Jordan Hawkins right now. Just to kind of round out this mock draft a little bit, my other options, my number 12 pick, Oklahoma City Thunder, Kobe Buffkin. I don't think the Magic need a point guard. So I'm a little loath to take point guards in this draft, because you got Cole Anthony, you got Markelle Fultz, you got Jalen Suggs, you got 3 guys that you're pretty heavily invested in and want to see develop. They're going to play. And so again, that pathway to play just isn't there. Kobe Buffkin's really good. Again, maybe not a natural point guard, but a great scorer, really just the modern NBA guard at that spot. I have Grady Dick going 13 to Toronto. Keep an eye out on my number 14 pick, Derek Lively. He is shooting up draft boards very, very quickly. There's a lot of talk about his development as a shooter. I'll believe it when I see it. Just a really disappointing season at Duke. Some of it because he's playing next to Kyle Filipowski. Some of it because Duke naturally depresses a player's role. We saw that with Paolo. But Lively is a big body, one of the top high school prospects in his class. That doesn't go away there. The other name to watch, my number 15 pick, there's reportedly a lottery promise for him. And a lot of Magic fans are speculating that's from them. And after the game he had to get Mets 92 into the French championship, certainly there. He had 16 points today. Bilal Coulibaly, just a super athlete. Everyone, Vic's pumping up his teammate there. This is a guy that does have NBA talent. Might be a little more raw, but super athletic, super long. There's wingspan. It's a draft podcast. We've gone 28 minutes without saying wingspan. He's got a long wingspan. He is someone to keep an eye on he is very much a Magic type player. A little bit of a bigger swing, a little bit of a deeper cut, a guy that's going to need some time to develop, but he's very, very skilled, and he's really come on strong as the season's gone on. He's got more playing time and is playing really, really well. I'm going to cut off the mock draft there. We're already out of the lottery. You can see the full mock draft, full first-round mock draft on OrlandoMagicDaily.com. Like I said, I'm going to come back to a big board later on in the week. We'll do another mock draft shortly after that. And, of course, we'll be back for a mock draft Monday to probably talk about trade options a little bit more seriously and what that draft could look like, or what the Magic might try to do with some trades up and down in this draft. And, again, I previewed some of my thoughts on that as well. When we come back, though, we're going to chat about Game 2 of the NBA Finals, a stunning 111-108 win for the Miami Heat. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. What have I been saying about the Miami Heat this entire playoffs? What have I been saying? I'll pause for effect so that you could repeat the words that I'm about to say. If you give this Miami Heat team an inch, they are going to take it. That is the Miami Heat way. That is the Heat culture. The Heat culture does not care about the score. They're clearly out-talented. They're out-talented against Boston. They're out-talented against Milwaukee. They're out-talented against Denver. They are clearly out-talented, but they will not be out-efforted. You can out-scheme them, you can outplay them, but they will not be out-efforted. And when a team is playing with more effort, with more intensity, with just a mind that the previous play doesn't matter, the next play doesn't matter, it's only this play, that is a dangerous team. And that's what Miami is proving over and over and over again. They did not do a lot of things really well. Denver was still able to kind of enforce their will in a lot of games. But what happened in game 2 that didn't happen in game 1 is Miami frustrated Denver. Whether that was because they were missing shots, whether that was because they changed the defense up enough, whether that was because Jokic had to score and it took everyone else out of rhythm. Miami got under Denver's skin in a way that did not happen in game 1. Of course, my favorite Steve Clifford quote, and it might have been a Stan Van Gundy quote, but Steve Clifford always said this. We would ask him about playoff adjustments, and he would say, look, the biggest adjustment any coach can make is for their team to hit shots. Game 1 was honestly lost for Miami when they missed a bunch of open threes early in the game. Denver was feeling their way through the game. Their defense was a little bit lax. They weren't as connected. Miami missed some open shots. Denver took control, and that was that. Denver felt very, very comfortable playing from ahead. In this game, Miami made those shots. 4 threes from Max Strus in the first quarter. Fourth quarter, dominated by Duncan Robinson. He had 10 points in like the first 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes of that quarter. And that completely flipped the game on its head. Making shots matters. It gives you confidence. It makes the basket it makes the basket seem bigger. It allows you, more importantly, to set your defense. You're not playing in transition. Denver took an 8-point lead heading to the fourth quarter because they were defending decently. Nikola Jokic hit 18 of his 41 in the third quarter, if I'm not mistaken. He was on the run, getting to the basket, and Miami couldn't get set. They couldn't load up on him. They couldn't do the things that they were doing to make him uncomfortable, to make that whole Denver offense uncomfortable. That's, again, the big key in this series. The key in this series is Miami's three-point shooting and Denver's turnovers. If Denver turns the ball over, Miami's going to have a chance. That's what happened in this game. After only turning it over 7 times in game 1, Denver turned it over a lot in game 2. They're playing on their back foot. They were trying to make up ground. And Miami was able to get out in transition. They were able to create some steals. They were able to create some confidence. They were able to make some shots. And that changes everything. Now, credit to Denver. They got down big. They fought back. They had a chance to tie the game at the end. But this is the other thing about Miami. And this is probably what you said earlier. Miami's goal is to make games close. They believe they can win any close game they are in. They believe Jimmy Butler is good enough to win any close game that they're in, and the numbers back that up, that they're going to win a lot of the close games that they're in. Denver certainly feels like it can win a lot of those close games too. And these kinds of series turn on who wins these close games. Now, Denver lost this game early in the fourth. They had to play catch up. This wasn't some back and forth affair. This was Denver getting frustrated. Nikola Jokic had some real bad frustration fouls that he sometimes does. This was about Denver getting frustrated, losing their poise, and getting beat. And that's what Mike Malone said in the postgame afterwards. He was frustrated and disappointed that his team lost their poise and composure. That's why they lost this game. Miami did the trick. This is the trick that Miami does to everyone. They made them frustrated and made them lose their cool. That's where these games are decided, unfortunately. That's where a lot of these games are decided, is in that space where teams lose their cool. If Denver's going to win game 3, and look, Denver, I think, is still very much in control of this series. I think they're still very much the favorites, but now they've given Miami some confidence. And the last thing you want to do is let a team like Miami take the lead. Because again, they believe they will win every close game. So if you let them lead, if you let them control the series, they believe they're going to win the thing. That's the truth of the matter. I'll be curious to see what Denver does. I thought their defense was fantastic in game 1. Their defense was really lax in game 2. it certainly felt like, as much as I know Aaron Gordon said he didn't listen, he tried to block out all the noise around him. It very much felt like Denver listened to all the noise and all the talk from the last 2 games saying, hey, Miami's got no answer for the Nuggets. This one is already over after 1 game. You could hear Mike Malone saying we haven't accomplished anything yet, trying to downplay his team's success. I think Denver got a little high on the hog there. I think they were feeling a little full of themselves, thought they could just turn it on, and it's just not what you're going to be able to do against Miami. Is that lesson learned? Well, we're going to find out in game 3 because there's a lot of questions now about the Nuggets. This is what everyone had concerns and why they weren't favorites to come to be in this moment, to be in the finals, is because they have often struggled with this very thing, this kind of intensity of focus in big moments. They've been able to overcome it so far this year because they're just so ruthlessly efficient, and Nikola Jokic is just so incredible. Now they got to do it again. Now they got to make it all work here. Game 3 is Wednesday night, I believe, in Miami at the Kaseya Center. Could be an interesting one. We'll recap that as we've been doing throughout the whole playoffs, recapping the playoffs on this show, because it's important to know what's going on at the highest levels as the Magic try to develop and get themselves there. But that's going to do it for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Of course, find me on Twitter at @PhilipRR_OMD. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all of our podcasts to your podcast-enabled listening device. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can, of course, follow me there on Twitter at @OMagicDaily. We appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. For my everyday listeners, or if you want to join our everyday crew, on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Magic, we're going to talk about what I think is actually the biggest need the Magic have this offseason and why there are so few options to fill it. We're going to talk about backup center and what the Magic do there. We'll get to that on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Magic. But until then, for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Rossman-Reich. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.